right, y'all. Now, I hate to be a derby downer on anybody's derby horse because it's one thing I've learned after 43 Kentucky Derbies is that any horse can win it. All you got to do is come out of the gate and finish with your rider. Any horse that's in a race can win it. There's the myriad of circumstances that I like to call it that could happen. The pace is way too fast. The pace is way too slow. Horse gets caught in traffic. Horse stumbles out of the gate. Horse is disqualified. All sorts of things can happen. So, when I'm looking at this last crop of horses here that I call the Derby Downers, I think that I'm really calling them downers because not that many people are on them. Now, a few people are on really only one of these horses. I don't really rank these horses that great, but I do see a path to victory for those of you out there that do like these horses. So let's get into it here. Number 15 is Render Judgment. Now, horse is sired by Blame, who's out of Arch. Mother's father is Commissioner. Now, that's not that great a breeding as far as these pack of horses go. Blame's good, but going back, it's not much. You got a Danzig, you got a Mr. Prospector in there, but I can only give this horse a 2 as far as a rating, and most of the other horses in here I've rated at a 5, a few at a 6. Now, they've switched his rider, coming off of Sheldon Russell, who I like Sheldon Russell. He's a good aggressive rider. Maybe doesn't time things quite as well as he should. But they're pulling him off, going with Julien Leperreau. Leperreau's ridden in, 14 derbies here. Hasn't gotten a win. He does have experience there. That is a good thing. He's got a lot of experience at Churchill Downs. He's more of a turf guy. But I guess, going with that Churchill Down experience is a good thing. They got him at 30-1 in the morning odds, 35-1 on Bovada. Now, Kenny McPeak's the trainer. He won the Derby last year, so if that means something to you, got the win with Mystic Dan. Horse has a few good workouts, minute breezing, then 102, just not a lot of consistency that you want to see out of a horse with the workout times. Now, when you want to get back to his last races, the one good thing I can say is before this last race he had in the Bluegrass Stakes, he was four lengths behind in that, 5th place behind Burnham Square and East Avenue. He was 2nd place in this Virginia Derby. Now, a lot of people are questioning the time of this race. I don't question the time as much. To me, the question is, will these horses be able to get that same trip again? Now, American Promise is running this race as well. He won that race. I gave him a 118 speed rating. Now, I think the reason why guys like Andrew Beyer and the Time Form people, they don't like to give these races like the Virginia Derby that fast a speed ratings is because if you do that, you have to give every horse that ran behind them a good speed rating too, because they still ran the race fast. I still believe they ran the race fast. The time is the time. What happens is when the pace gets to be too fast, a lot of horses, you just what they get called what I like to call the horse's best race. You really get the most out of the horse, and they really never would have run that race had they not been mixed up in that pace. So horses that do get mixed up in the pace are sometimes a little seemingly too close to the pace, but not too close. They can just burst out this amazing time that they never knew they had in them. And I think that's a bit of what happened here with Render Judgment. Now, he's 7 lengths behind, but that time was so amazing. That still warrants him a 113 number. By the way, I calculated out 7 lengths off. I mean, even if I want to punish him bad, I'm only going to drop it down to a 108. Now, that was with Sheldon Russell as well, not Julien Leperreau, who's not really as aggressive. Now, to me, that means the horse might be able to run it back if you want to take a shot on that, especially in a fast pace, which the Derby's liable to be. But it's a big risk, especially you're not getting the same jockey that ran with him. And to me, the jockey's 50% of this sport. To me, there's a jockey and there's a horse. And ask the people that liked Empire Maker in the Derby if the jockey makes a difference. Going back further here, the horse was 8th in the Risen Star behind Magnitude, Chunk of Gold, and Built. 19 lengths off in there. He was ridden by B.J. Hernandez, who's going to be aboard Burnham Square in this one. 3rd in the Gun Runner, 9 lengths behind Built in Magnitude in that one. 5th in the Kentucky Jockey Club, 8 lengths behind, and that's his stats. He was 3rd in that race. So he did beat American Promise as a maiden. If you're looking for another little nugget to bet on this horse, he's been beat by Built 3 times. Built's running that. I think he's going to be in the Pat Day Mile. I'm not sure. I haven't seen the final lineup for that, but yeah, Render Judgment, he's there. The thing you really got to not like about this horse to me is that the trainer didn't want to put him in the race. I think they were looking to put him in an allowance race. And then because he was able to get in because Japan Street dropped out, then they're like, hey, well, we can go. And I'm sure the owners probably had something to do that. And I don't blame them. If I had a horse that had a chance to go to the Pat Day, Kentucky Derby and I could go in the Pat Day Mile and maybe win, it's not like he's going to be a lock for the Pat Day Mile or some allowance race. He's going, hey, go to the Derby. Go to the Derby. That's what you got to do. Take the shot. Because like I said, all kinds of crazy stuff can happen and you might be able to get a win. Number 16, Cold Battle. Now, I like this horse going into the Arkansas Derby. He ended up 3rd in that, 7 lengths behind Sandman and Publisher. Going to be ridden by Juan Vargas. Lonnie Briley's the trainer. The breeding-wise, the horse is out of Cold Front. Mother's father's midshipman, so I had to dig deep once again. Pull out a Bernardini, a Mine Shaft, an Unbridled Song, but not as strong of a breeding. I didn't even give him a breeding rating. I guess I could maybe give him a 1 on the fly here. 30-1 in the morning odds, 22-1 on Bovada because he was coming off a 4-race win streak coming into that Arkansas Derby. Now, I try to stay away from feel-good stories in most sports and especially in horse racing. Why? Because they tend to not happen. Like I said, the horse racing gods tend to not favor feel-good stories. So I try to stay away from the feel-good story with Lonnie Briley, the trainer, and the horse. All I know is just something with the trainer, and he was sick, and it's got something to do with some kids. And I'm sure it's a great story. The reason I don't want to find out more about the story is because I don't want it to affect my judgment on picking the horse. All I know is feel-good stories tend to not pan out, and so I didn't look into that story. It just makes me not like the horse. Now, I liked him in the Arkansas Derby, and I had the feeling in the Arkansas Derby that he had one more win left in him, and then he was going to fail in the Kentucky Derby. He failed in the Arkansas Derby. He ran 3rd, not bad, but that time wasn't that great, beaten by Sandman and Publisher, who I think probably are going to have a little bit better of a chance than him in this race. Now, you might want to say, hey, you need that race to tighten up. Before that, he ran in the Rebel. He was coming off of, some weaker wins. Smarty Jones, the Springboard Mile, won this Jean Lafitte, Delta Downs race. He did lose to Tiz Tactic in the Juvenile Mile at Kentucky Downs on turf. If you want to go back to an old matchup here. But the horse was looking good, but when I see this from horses, to me it seems like they're milers. They seem to be outclassed, and then they bring it up to the Kentucky Derby because, hey, you can get lucky, and of course they can. So if you like this horse and you like this story, by all means, go for it. You're going to get paid well if he wins, or if he hits the board. I got him at a 100 speed rating. Not bad, but there's lots of horses I have rated faster. He's not really a front runner, but he did take the lead going 49.5 mile. That's not really going to be a leader in this race, but it does mean he's not going to be off the pace. So he's going to get sucked into a fast pace. If they run with it, I think it's going to be too much for him. And if they try to choke him out, I don't think they're going to be able to get lucky with it. His only chance, I think, is if he actually just takes the lead and everybody lets him have it. Not much chances of that happening, but hey, it's a possibility. Good horse. I just think he should probably be in the Pat Day Mile. Next horse, I guess there's probably the most to like about this one. I hear a few people liking him. They're playing him in supers and tries. Is the 19 Chunk of Gold, 30 to 1 in the morning odds. What this 49 to 1 or 35 to 1 here on Bovada. Um, Now, breeding wise, horse out of Preservationist. It's another arch horse. Mother's father's Cairo Prince. So you got to dig back to dig up some Pioneer of the Nile, and Mine Shaft in there again. Like I said, what am I going to give him, a 1 for a breeding rating? It's just not that great, especially compared to these other horses. You got horses sired by Justify, American Pharaoh. They're Triple Crown winners. And then you got Into Mischief horses in here. Into Mischief, I don't care what people say. When you look at the stats, Into Mischief, 2 Derby winners, question, but two Derby winners in a grandsire. So Into Mischief horses solid as far as what the stats are saying. So not much breeding wise. Now Jared Loveberry ran in 1 Derby, ran second. Now a lot of people are like, oh, what great record. Yeah, you could say that. I think there's a bigger case to be made out of Flavian Pratt's record. I hate to say it, but he's great in the Derby. But back over to Jared Loveberry, trained by Ethan West. So horse has got okay workout. He got a 49. He did a 59 and then a 49 before that. It was all an artificial. So do with that what you may. Now, Loveberry, second on 2 fills. He had won on 2 fills before that, if I'm not mistaken. So at 2 fills was, I think, a bit better of a horse than Chunk of Gold. Loveberry's jumping aboard this horse. Now, he rode him Louisiana Derby, ran second there. So that's what the people like, I think. Second behind his tactic there. I give him a 102 speed rating for that. So he ends up with a 102 overall rating for me. Second in the Risen Star behind that, behind Magnitude. 9 lengths off, but second there with Loveberry on him. Second in the Leonatus at Turfway. Another race on artificial surface. Won by a neck and is made to Turfway. So you're looking at a horse and like, yeah, he's got a good record. Win by a neck, a second, another second. I just think he's outclassed here. And I think he's going to need a lot of luck. He's going to close, but so is everybody else. I mean, we all know that journalism is the next coming of Secretariat. So he's going to have to outclose him, Sovereignty. He's going to have to outclose Sandman. I just think it's going to be too much for Chunk of Gold. Number 20, Owen Almighty. Another horse. They flip-flopped on interim. The trainer didn't want to put him in, Brian Lynch. They ended up putting him in because the owners want him in. And I'm not going to repeat myself in that story. If you were the owner and you got a chance to win the Kentucky Derby, take the shot. Why not? Could be once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Horse out of Spadestown. Mother's father's Bayern. So once again, not much to write home with here. You go back. Another one, digging back into some Mr. Prospector, some Stormcat. That's the one thing you notice. The horse, the breeders really did some digging here, because to get 3rd generation Mr. Prospector and 3rd generation Stormcat, you had to find some horses that, I mean, I don't know how old Spacetown is, but I mean, you have to go digging to get that kind of depth in your that's what you were looking for in your family tree like 20 years ago. I got me a Mr. Prospector with some Stormcat in there. But Owen Almighty, for what it's worth, I think that still translates. I think the genes still translate through. But I think Owen Almighty probably should be in the Pat Day mile. I think he's more of a miler. 31 in the morning odds, 50 to 1 on Bovada. That should tell you something there. It said the trainer wasn't confident in him. Now, jockey's riding him, Javier Castellano, never ridden him before, but guess what? He never rode mates before. That's one of the jockey qualifiers that I say that you need for any race, and the Kentucky Derby as well. You need 20%, of course. You like to see 20% at the track or on the meet, if not throughout the year. You want to see a horse, a jockey that's ridden the horse before, really, you want to see a horse that's a jockey that's won on the horse before. And if not, you want one of these solid jockeys that you got to put in this category Castellano's definitely one of those guys. He's not necessarily got the resume of Mike Smith or even Rosario maybe at this point, but Castellano is an old school dude. He's got big wins: Breeders' Cup Classic, Kentucky Derby win. So yeah, I mean that's a good choice for the jockey. You got to say Castellano if you're a Castellano fan. Huge odds on your boy. So that's a reason to bet him. Decent works. He's got a minute, then a 49, then a minute, then a 49. So up and down there. That's all in the trainers sometimes. Workouts. It's one of the least indicative metrics. The only metric that I've found really with workouts is when you're hitting those top solid workouts 3, 4, 5 times in a row consistently. That's what your Big Browns and your Fleet Alexes and your Real Quiets did. 58s multiple times, 46s and 4s. So not seeing that here. Horse got a win in the Tampa Bay Derby. Before his last out was the Bluegrass Stakes, which that was another fast pace, but not fast enough. Taking a step back here to render judgment. Like Bluegrass here, he was in that race as well. You're looking at 46-4. 46-4 to me favors the front running horse if you're talented. He was not on the lead; he was near it. But if you can't hang with it, then it's going to bring this closer deal like it did with Burnham Square. East Avenue, 46-4, couldn't hang, but came in by a neck. Virginia Derby was different. They went 45-2. That's flying. Now, for the people that say it's a second, it's a second and 2/5. That's a huge difference. Huge difference when you're talking about a horse race, especially when you're talking about the opening half mile. So with that 45-2 and what you could stretch out there with a rendered judgment versus what you're getting here with Owen Almighty, yeah, unimpressive race in the Bluegrass. The Tampa Bay Derby was probably his best race. I gave him a 103 for that. That's how I rate him here. Overall, it's a 103 that he achieved there. He's going to have to do better than that, in my opinion, to win this. I don't think he'll be able to win it with a 103 here. He also had Irad Ortiz riding him in that race. Doesn't have Irad here. He's got Castellano. I like Irad better. I know Castellano's got the win in this race. He's been around much longer, and for a very long time, Castellano never had a Derby win. Until he won that with Mage. So I like Irad better. He got the win in Tampa Bay, but Irad's not there. Irad rode him before that in Sam F. Davis, where he lost to John Hancock. Second by half a length there. Decent race. Second in the Iroquois. Got a win in the Juvenile here at Ellis Park. And also, he broke his maiden at Churchill Downs. So there's some things to like. I mean, like I said, if you're the owner, if I was the owner, I'd put him in the Derby. And you're like, Nate, but you got a better chance in the other race. Yeah, but I have a better chance at history in this race because nobody remembers who wins the Pat Day Mile. Everybody, the Derby, there's no Pat Day Mile glass. The Derby, every year, people get your glass, you got your name on there. Not to mention it's such a big deal, and people like me are making videos about it every year. So, they're taking the shot. Like I said, he likes the track. He's got a good jockey, but I think you're really taking a big long shot here. With Owen Almighty. Plus, he's probably going to be forwardly placed, but then they said we're going to rate him this time. And that rarely works out. We try to start rating horses for the first time with a new jockey. It just, not that it can't happen, but you're hoping for a lot. I'm telling you, you're hoping for a lot there. So that's my Derby downers here. 15 Render Judgment, 16 Coal Battle, 19 Chunk of Gold, and 20 Owen Almighty. So, I mean, the first thing you notice here with me, I love the jockeys. And you're looking at a Le Perot, a Juan Vargas, Jared Loveberry, and Castellano's good on a horse he's never ridden before. So I can see why you may want to take a stab at this, but if I were you, I wouldn't go all in on any of these horses. Now, that concludes my series for the Derby. Check out my other in-depth deep dives here I got on these other horses, the Derby Stealth horses. I've got the Derby Troublemakers. I've got the Derby Challengers and also the Derby Favorites. But we're going to have to wrap it all up here. I have not picked a horse. I have not fully handicapped this race because as we all know, pace makes the race, and I got to throw together the pace to put together the race. There's a great video out there. Um, I'll throw reference into it. The dude did a great job on the pace, uh, so I'll get that together so I could reference that for you guys to check that video out. My problem is that he kind of threw the whole pace away at the end and just decided that he's going to pick journalism because he just decided journalism is going to win, and threw all the data away at the end and just picked his guy. I don't like to do that, so I'm going to draw up the pace, and I'm going to come up with a winner.